one guy that has a lot of influence in our pack, if you will, is our guest coach, Charlie Slagle. Thank you so much for being with us, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, good to have you with our people. And it's an awesome time. It's a great time of year. I feel like there's a little energy as we slide in the summer. Everybody's livening up a little bit. So we're excited to hear from you, man. Welcome. This is a toolkit session. We meet for 20 minutes the second Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern to go through some of these principles that are really true to life. Every one of you already knows the majority of this stuff. The clutch part of all this is the language, the vocabulary that can create culture, and the visual linguistic tools that give us a really simple idea that this visual sears in our brain. So Charlie, go ahead and kick us off, man. But first, tell us about yourself. Where are you coming from, and how did you become a leadership coach?
Yeah, thanks, John, Eddie, for inviting me to this, and hi, everybody. So, yeah, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, born and raised here, 62 years old, semi-retired, and then I found Giant, and I said, oh my goodness, I'm back in the game because I feel like I have something else to give. Yeah. I've been running companies my whole career, just sold a company last August, but I really found Giant in January of 2022 and said, this is all the books I've ever read are kind of in one place, and they're visual. Yep. They're simple. They're easy to learn. So that's my really, really short resume, but I just enjoy helping people and really calling them up and fighting for their best good. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, that's great. I love how you say that from one connector to another. I know we're fine with interrupting each other a little bit. I feel the same way. It's like I could read so many leadership books, but that's what these toolkit sessions are about. This is like a little Cliff's Notes. This 20 minutes is like reading an entire book on this principle. It distills it down, and it's just so meaty. So let's get to it.
Yeah. So Eddie, I don't know if you're going to share the screen or I can share my screen or whatever.
Eddie's going to.
One of the things that we talk about in Giant all the time, and I talk with all of my clients about, is how really all of the Giant tools are designed to be a mirror that you put up in front of your face and say, where am I in this area, whatever that area might be. And the interesting part about mirrors is the fact that they don't judge, they don't make suggestions, they don't have opinions, they don't do anything but reflect what's in front of it back to the person there. And when I got into the Giant world and I learned this tool, the 5 circles of influence, it was probably the hardest mirror for me to look in personally as somebody who has gone through their career, children are out of the house, and I had to look at this mirror and say, wow, I have a lot of broccoli in my teeth that I need to get out. And what I realized was that these 5 circles of influence are always there for every leader, whether you know it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. And those 5 circles are self, family, team, organization, and community. So why was this a hard mirror for me to look at? Because most of my career, I was very intentional with team, organization, and really my community. But I was very accidental with myself and with my family. Now, I would like to say that I was a very involved father with my kids and the family. We went on vacations. I was involved, but it wasn't intentional. And I've learned by looking at this mirror here, or this tool, that there's a difference between being involved and being intentional. You can be involved and still be very accidental. And what I have found in the last 2 or 3 years for myself, that if I'm not intentional with myself, I can't be intentional with my family. And if I'm not intentional with my family, really my team suffers. For so many years, I thought that I was such a great leader because my team was great, my organization was doing well, my community, the community that I was in, seemed to be very vibrant. And I was very intentional about that. But what I realized looking back and looking into this mirror is that I didn't give myself any time. And my family, like I said, I was involved, but I wasn't intentional. So now at 62 years old, you have time to redo and to become intentional with yourself and to become intentional with your family. As leaders, we need to make sure that we're doing the self and family, and then your team will be much more helped by your intentionality. Your organization will be better, because it's like the core of a baseball. If the core of the baseball isn't there, the baseball is really not going to be very good. You can hit it and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's what you have to build, is that core part. And for me, it's intentionality to say, okay, every afternoon at 4:45, I'm done and I'm taking time for myself. I'm taking a clarity break. I'm going to go walk for an hour at the park. Or me and my wife are going to go ride bikes. So that's with my family. And honestly, if somebody in my family calls now and says, hey, we want to do this, I'll pretty much drop whatever I'm doing to be within family. But more importantly, we plan things now that we're going to go to the park with my extended family on the third Wednesday of every month. Come if you can, but we're intentional about it. We want to be intentional about our family being together, and then intentional about myself being important. If you do those two things, your team will benefit, your organization will benefit, and your community will benefit. I spent too much time in the team and organization. I really did. It's sometimes hard to look at that mirror and say, well, I can't do anything about that now, but I sure can. And whatever the time I have left on this earth, I can definitely start to use this tool every day in my own life. So that's the tool. It's a hard tool for me to look at. It might be a hard tool for you to look at, but it's so important to make sure yourself, your family come first, then your team, organization, and community. Any questions? And Eddie, I'm not sure how you want to take this from here with only a few minutes left. What is the normal flow? If you have questions, I'd be love to answer them and give the insights that I've had in the past.
I think we have 10 minutes, Charlie. I think you nailed that tool and you model it well for us. And so I think we have some time for questions. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the colors of the circles might come up in the questions.
Okay.
So let's hold off on that. We can finish there. So yeah, Kelly, did you have a question?
I did. Charlie, I love this tool too. My focus is really on relationships, because if really critical ones aren't going well, your brain spends a lot of time on it and then you can't really focus on what you're doing. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what you feel is the main difference between involved and intentional, because I think intentional is a word that people hear and they think they know what it means, but I'm not really sure that they do.
Yes. Great question, Kelly. When I say I was an involved father, I was at the baseball games. I coached soccer. I went to swim meets. We went on vacations. So I was involved in their life, but it wasn't we have another program, and I know, Eddie, you can talk about it later. 6 Summers was really created for fathers to be intentional with their children. And intentionality means, okay, I'm going to plan when my son turns 12 years old, we're going to take a trip to the Tetons. We're going to do something intentional about it. And I'm going to plan this out. I'm going to have conversations planned out with my son. I'm going to have adventures with my daughter. We're going to go somewhere together. And I didn't do that. I was involved. If something came up, I was there. There are times though, and I'll give you one story. I had to go to a meeting, I thought, and there was something my children were going to be in, a program of some type. And I told my wife, I have to go to this meeting. And my wife was very gentle with her 2x4 that had, velvet on it. But she said, what happens if you're in a car wreck on the way? Will the meeting go on? And I said, well, of course. She goes, then you don't have to be there. And that was just kind of a smack up the side of the head, saying that I need to be intentional about being with my kids and whatever they're doing. But more importantly, I need to plan things. I need to be intentional. I need to have those experiences. I need to have those talks the talks you have with your kids, to be intentional about that, not just when it comes up after they've made a mistake, right? Most of my conversations with my kids were after something had happened and I'm having to fix something. And I needed to be more intentional about planning those things. Same thing with my family. You know, I need to be intentional about, we need to plan a date night, not once a month, but every week. What are we going to do, just me and my wife, intentionally, where it's on the calendar and nobody else can interrupt with it? So that's how I see intentional versus involved in my life and with my kids and family.
Great question. Thank you, Kelly. I think that, Aaron, I saw in the chat that you were looking for some more of those practical cues. What I heard from Charlie in that is scheduling and being more perceptive of my calendar in the future and just making sure I have that down. But in the space, what are you thinking, Aaron? Do you have any ideas? You have any other questions about that? And then I see your hand, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'll just comment for 10 seconds. Probably the angle I was taking. And by the way, Charlie, thank you for that. That's an awesome summary of the tool. I got some great nuggets out of that. Yeah, so for my voice order, I start out like at Guardian. So I'm always interested in being intentional emotionally. I can default to spending the time, blocking the time, but then am I truly present? And do I know how to engage on a connection level? So that's me.
Yeah.
For me, I'm with extended family this entire week. And for me, it's just being more interested than interesting. When I'm in that space with that 5-year-old little niece who's telling me about over-activated putty, silly putty, I'm interested. And so I want to know more about you. I want to know more about what's going on in your head, in your heart, in your life right now. So that's another, that's awesome.
We've got
Jimmy.
a question from,
Yeah, thank you. So for me, I'm hearing, when I hear that from my guardian voice, right, I think of that intentionality. I show up with a plan, and it's usually based on like character, like with my children, I'm speaking, right? Character development and things like that. So it's not just being involved. So I love that, Charlie. That's huge. What I would ask, Charlie, is when you looked in the mirror, right, and you saw where you needed some improvement and giving yourself time and family, I see potential there for someone to get into that space and kind of automatically feel like you mentioned, right, they're way behind the power curve. They've got so much recovery time, and there's an opportunity there for really kind of feeling deflated. Do you see a tool that would be useful, or a conversation that would be useful to kind of get them to focus on going green, right, like Errol's showing us, to try to move outward and focus on that? So speak on that if you could, please.
Yeah, one of the things, I'm going to speak a little bit about the 5 gears, because I had to go in reverse a lot. I had to go to my wife and my kids and come back and say, and of course they're going, oh no, Dad, you were great. But in the 5 gears, there's a time to go in reverse and apologize when necessary. And I had to go back and say, I'm sorry that we didn't spend enough time together one-on-one. I'm sorry that we weren't in that connect mode a lot, that I was always in social task and focus mode. As a connector, focus maybe not so much, but I was more about being with others than being with my family. I was more about being with my team or my organization than I was my family. So I don't know if this is answering your question, Jimmy, but I spent a lot of time in responsive mode or reverse, to go back and say, where else could where can I be better now? What do we need to do now? And it's amazing how your family will notice a change. I have noticed that with my extended family and things like that, where I used to be so busy I couldn't go to the dinner or whatever because of business, and now I'm present. So I had to look at it as, I can't undo the past, but I can change the future. But I can go back and apologize, or at least explain where I was at the time, and my family has been very gracious in those that that are the closest to me, those relationships that I have. And luckily, or fortunately in my case, I didn't hurt any relationships, I don't think, but the relationship I think could have been better now. But who knows? I might have another 20, 30 years here, and that's a long time to build relationships that aren't really broken, but build a relationship. And my communication with people is so much more intentional now, to where I put my phone in the kitchen when my wife and I go out on the back porch. That back to what you were saying, John, being present. I take the time intentionally to not look at my phone. My computer never goes downstairs after 4:45. It just stays upstairs. I don't look at it again. And that's intentionality for me. And I will say, I did have the shakes the first, year or so when I did that, but I've seen the fruit of this, and I realize that I'm a better dad now. I'm a better husband now. I'm a better family leader now, because I am more intentional. And I think as leaders, that's what we have to do. We cannot necessarily change the past, but we can always look to the future and be better. And that's why this tool has been so impactful for me, because I've seen the change with my family.
Charlie,
Jimmy, sorry.
Oh, that's great. I'll wrap us up here. Charlie, what an incredible just opportunity to be able to see and hear, almost like a testimonial of like your own life, your own progression, from a time of being accidental to now the areas where you're intentional. So thank you for being here. Let me rapid fire. Absolutely, brother. Thank you. Let me rapid fire every circle of influence, so that you can think of accidental versus intentional in a way that, from the point of view of health, right? We'll just call it 0 to 100, right? So in the sense of being unhealthy versus, or accidental versus intentional, how healthy are you for yourself right now, right? How are you leading yourself, right? Maybe it's an 80, maybe it's a 90. Are you sleeping? Are you exercising? Are you eating, right? There's simple, low shelf things, but then are you aware of your responses? Are you aware of your leadership, of what it's like to be on the other side of you? For your family, right? Are you in the right year? Charlie mentioned that, just to recap him. He mentioned, hey, I'm in the right year. I'm not on my phone. I'm not sending emails. When dinner time comes, I'm present. I am with them. I am socially connected. I'm going one-on-one. How are you? How was your day? What's going on? That's a very relational, right? At the family level of just, and am I aware of how healthy I am in that space, 1 to 100? Then you think about your team. How am I leading them? Am I bringing support? Am I bringing challenge? Am I showing up consistently in that space? Do I know my people's personality type? Do I know what's going on in their world? Do I know how to help them win, right? How healthy are you in that space, right? Then you think about the organization, whether it be Giant or your organization that you're connected to, your workplace every day, and what is your impact in that space, 1 to 100, right? This is a way that we can stack every single area and think, what are my tendencies in every circle of influence, including community, right? And how healthy am I in every circle, right? And how am I leading in every circle, right? And what gear, how do I show up in my presence in every circle? The circles of influence lends itself to almost being stacked with a lot of different communication tools, being present tools. And so just to for those of you who understand the language I'm saying, but for those of you who don't, I would just say, how healthy are you with yourself, with your family? How healthy are you with your team, with the organization? And then how healthy are you in the community? And that's a really good place to start, right? Are you healthy, or are you unhealthy? Or are you consistent, or are you accidental? Intentional or accidental? So guys, that's it for today. So thankful for your time. So thankful for you guys to be here. 20 minutes in and out. We'll have the recording. If you go through Surrender Network on YouTube, it'll be, all the recordings are on there. And if you want those recordings, just also email me. You have mine and John's email. We're happy to share them with you. And thanks for being here. Charlie, thanks again.
Thank you all.